Hello, welcome back. This is Scenario 5 of the EARTH-ROMULAN War, the Tholian Influence. Lovely one suggested by Jeff. And
Yeah, I love my Tholians.
for this one, I'm going to play Captain Ignorant because I haven't actually flown Tholians before, let alone played around with Tholian web tokens. So Jeff will be doing most of the talking for this one, and I'll chime in with some questions if I've got them.
Okay, sounds good. So we're all used to games where you put obstacles or planets or whatever out in the middle of the board at the start of the game, and they sit there and they're there the whole game, and you have to avoid them. This one is kind of like that, but they're actually ships. They're Tholian ships, and we each have limited control over two Tholian ships. So you can see there's four different colors of them. Two of them are green and two of them are blue. So in our little test through here, I am Romulan, so I'll control the two green ones, and Nick is Federation, so he's going to control the two blue ones. Uh, just a quick overview of what's going to happen with the Tholians. So I'm going to sync this one and just put my dial. I'm not going to try and do it upside down, I'm afraid. So at the start of the game, rather than placing two obstacles out, you're going to place two Tholians out. And so I'll just pretend that I have initiative here, and I'll put my Tholian ship here somewhere in this center box. You have the ability to influence the Tholians, which means they kind of do some straightforward things each time, but you can change them a little bit. So let's just say that we placed four Tholian ships out here, wherever we did, and I'll just focus on this dark green one. But, and I'm basically going to do a real quick tutorial here about how Tholians work. These Tholians are neutral ships. They don't participate in combat. They don't take damage. You can't give them an Ox token. All they can do is basically do a one straight and then take the energy web action. You can see the energy web action card over here with the stuff I have, and we'll make all these things available. I'm not entirely sure if we'll give you a bag or try and put it in the mod, but basically you'll have all these green and blue things available to you to play the game.
Yep.
When the Tholians are all going to move at Captain Skill 0, and then according to initiative. So let's just say my Tholians go first. I have my green one over here, my light green and my dark green, and I'll decide my dark green one moves first. So these ships, they always do a one straight. So you can manipulate the dials and everything, but they always do a one straight. And as long as they didn't bump with that, they always perform the energy web action. What the energy web action is you take one of these triangles, you put it up against the back of your ship, lined right up against the back edge, and then you take one of these energy web sticks, and it points straight down the line there. So you put it there, and that's a Tholian web. It's called the energy web token. And so now that's starting to provide a barrier on the board. I will also do that with my other Tholian here. And let's just say I started there. Oh, no, I'm sorry, I'm not done. Once you've performed the energy web action, you also have the option to point a little differently. You can either keep facing the way you are, or you can turn a little bit to the left, or you can turn a little bit to the right. It's called change facing, and it's the reason for this second triangle that's here. Let's say I decide I want to change facing to the right. What you do is you put the second triangle right next to the first triangle, and then you pick up your ship and you put it up against that triangle instead. And then you take the other one, get it out of the way. So I've now changed facing by 60 degrees. And next time, if I were to do another one straight, do that now, I think.
Yep.
Now this time I started with the triangle against my ship, so I pick it up and move it, and then I put assuming I didn't bump, I can perform the energy web action, which puts a second token out there. So quickly, you're going to see that the middle of the board or wherever is going to get clogged up with these things. They can't move, and you can avoid them if you're careful. But if you run into one, so let's just say you're...
Yep. So let's take my Saber class.
Yeah. Oops, wrong way. So this is one point. I wish I'd written the rules a little clearer. These function like normal Tholians, and the normal rules for the Tholians. If your Saber, let's just say first of all, your Saber just tries to turn away but fails, and so it overlaps this web token a little bit. When that happens, what you do is you count up the number of energy web tokens on the board. Actually, I'll take this one off for the... So 1, 2. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4 of these sticks. There's also 1, 2, 3 of the triangles. The triangles also count as energy web tokens. If the Saber had run into that one instead, it's not part of the ship. It's basically an energy web token. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4 sticks, 1, 2, 3 triangles. So a total of seven elements of the Tholian web are on the board. So what you do if you hit one is you take that number, you divide by 2, rounding up. So that would give you 4 dice. And you basically have to roll 4 dice of damage, similarly to Cloak Mines. You can't defend it. All you can do is suffer it. And so even though I'm controlling the greens and you're the blues, it's like they're all part of the same Tholian fleet. So you roll 2 hits there. So your Saber would take 2 hits of damage.
2 shields.
Yeah.
Not very nice.
Right. So your job as a good Tholian influencer is to figure out where to draw this web. It's in that example, the Saber actually landed on it, but it's also true, and this is the part I wish the rules had been a little clearer for this scenario. It just says if your ship overlaps, but the way Tholians work is even if your template overlaps, that still counts. So you can't just hop over the web.
So I did
As
a
you
3
can see,
forwards.
there's this big electric fence thing here.
Now,
yeah.
So my question is, what if you overlap 2?
Yeah, exactly. Don't do that. Because you roll damage twice, basically. For each token that your ship and or template overlapped, you do the full damage roll. So in this case, you'd roll 4 and then 4 again.
Yeah. So if you do have to fly over an energy web, make sure it's only 1.
Yeah, that's right. Another point here is let's keep using the Saber for something. If I were to execute a 1 straight with my Tholian ship there, I would bump. And so I would slide back. I don't get my action. I take away the triangle. And now there's a gap in the Tholian web because next turn it's going to go ahead and move along. I think it can... Oh, yeah. Yeah, you don't want to be there either because when it puts it down, it can drop it right onto you. So that would be really bad. Yeah, sorry about that. So but you would get the triangle, and you would get the web. So that's the nastiest thing a Tholian can do is to drop a web onto you, which unfortunately you don't get to do such. But
yeah.
But there is a gap there. I guess that was the point I wanted to make. So it's possible to get through as long as you are careful about it.
And because both Tholians are technically neutral, well, I say technically neutral, we don't really want... neither side wants a diplomatic incident, so the Tholians can't be targeted by your ships.
That's right. You can't attack them. They can't take damage. You could gradually steer them off the board if you chose to, and that basically doesn't really accomplish anything for the score. It sends them off the board, but they don't have any point value anyway. So there's not a lot of reason to take your Tholian off the board unless it's in your way. So all you can really do is place them where you think is a good thing at the start, facing a particular way. and also the choice of changing facing or not. How I pointed to the right, I turned a little bit to the right, and so every time a Tholian moves, if it performs that action because it doesn't bump, you have a little bit of a choice of where to steer it.
And also, I think you get an instant 100 points for your faction if you can spell out your name by the end of the
Yes,
match.
yes, good point. So I guess that gives an advantage to TJ, doesn't
Oh, well,
it?
yeah,
His
actually,
nice
no, I
short
shouldn't have
games.
said that.
Yeah, Jeff is going to be a rough one to do. But
Um,
like,
yeah, and again, I think it's pretty obvious at this stage, but even flying over your own energy web tokens, because they're all classed as just
that's right.
Tholian web tokens, the same thing applies. You can't just assume that yours don't trigger. You just
That's right.
avoid all the webs.
It's a little different in a regular attack wing game if both sides bring Tholians because Tholians are immune to Tholian webs. Um, so they can jump on their own or the other person's just fine. And yeah, that's true here. A Tholian can land on someone else's web and it's no problem.
Can it also then place a Tholian web sort of cross like that?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
There's nothing wrong with that. And the each little token, the sticks and the triangles, they also count as obstacles for purposes of shooting through them,
Oh,
so they
okay.
can obstruct fire through them. And one other thing to say is, if you like there with your saber, you when you maneuver, you're sliding all the way over the web, and so even if you started away from it and finished over it, you're still basically hitting the web with your template. But if you were to echo, you can echo over a web without penalty as long as you're not landing on it. So
That's
it's
interesting.
risky to do because if you're wrong, I guess you could just choose not to do it. But um, if you're counting on that, you better get it right because you are putting yourself really close to the the tokens. But yeah, that's right. So if I've got the special banking thing
Yep.
and I'm there, I can cross the Tholian web that way.
Yeah.
So if you're trapped, you basically you still could get out. You have to kind of come up against it to the side and then hop over it sideways, or not quite sideways if you have this banking one. But yeah, this one is all about constraining movement on the board, figuring out a good place to build up your wall, maybe even responding to what the other person's doing with their Tholians.
I think
And
something I've
yeah,
just noticed then, really, because I thought for a second and I thought, well, I suppose this heavily favours the Romulans because obviously they'll be sensor echoing all over the place through the webs. But by the same token, Romulans are going to be wanting to be cloaked, so they're potentially more vulnerable, whereas the Federation have their shields to
yeah,
absorb more of
yeah,
the
that's
damage.
right.
So it is quite balanced in that sense.
Yeah, similar to dealing with cloaked mines.
Yeah,
You can absorb it with your shields, but if you're cloaked, you have more maneuverability because of the echoes and stuff. But if it does hit you, you're in trouble,
yeah.
right?
So as a Romulan, you've got more maneuvering options, but you're more vulnerable to them.
Right,
Yeah.
right. And I've covered most of the basics here about Tholians, but because the rules were written so long ago, and we had to do a lot of work in the rules group to clean up the Tholian rules. So you can go into the card specific rulings and search for the word Tholian, and there's about 8 rulings in there. But I think I've covered most of them here.
Perfect. Okay. One scenario left, so we will join you for that one.